I got a new nurse fired for accusing me of having an affair with my father.
So, my dad has been dealing with kidney problems for the past 3 years and has to go to dialysis 3 times a week.
Since my mom passed away last year, I've been the one driving him to all his appointments because he can't really drive himself anymore. The whole process takes like 4 hours each time, so I usually just stay there and keep him company.
Most of the nurses there are super sweet and understand that family members hang around. They've gotten to know me over the months, and we always chat about random stuff while my dad's hooked up to the machine. It's honestly become this weird little routine that makes the whole thing less depressing.
But then this new nurse started working there about 2 months ago. Her name was Jessica, and from day one, she had this attitude like she owned the place. She would give me these weird looks whenever I walked in with my dad, like I was doing something wrong just by being there. At first, I thought maybe she was just having bad days or whatever.
But then she started making these really uncomfortable comments, like she'd ask my dad if I was his girlfriend in this sarcastic tone, or she'd make jokes about how close we seemed.
I thought she was just being awkward and trying to be funny, so I mostly ignored it. But then last Tuesday, things got completely insane. My dad was feeling really tired that day, so I was helping him get comfortable in his chair and adjusting his blanket. I gave him a quick kiss on the forehead, like I always do, because that's what you do when you love your family, right? Well, Jessica saw this and completely lost it. She marched over and said in front of everyone that the romantic displays needed to stop immediately. I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And she goes, "Listen, honey, I don't know what kind of arrangement you two have, but this is a medical facility, not a hotel room." I literally could not believe what I was hearing. My dad's face went completely red, and he started trying to explain that I'm his daughter, but Jessica just rolled her eyes and said, "Sure, and I'm the Queen of England."
I've seen enough May-December relationships to know what's going on here. The whole dialysis room went dead silent.
Other patients were staring, and I could see some of the other nurses looking super uncomfortable. I was so shocked that I couldn't even speak for like 30 seconds. That's when my dad, bless his heart, pulled out his wallet and showed her his license with our matching last names, plus a photo of me from my high school graduation. Jessica barely glanced at it and said, "Those can be faked." Nice try, though.
I was done. I asked to speak to the supervisor immediately. Jessica laughed and said the supervisor would just tell me the same thing she was telling me. But when the supervisor came over, she took one look at the situation and immediately understood what was happening.
Turns out Jessica had been making similar accusations about other family members too. The supervisor was horrified and apologized like 50 times.
She said they'd been getting complaints about Jessica's inappropriate comments, but hadn't realized how bad it had gotten.
They fired Jessica that same day. The supervisor said accusing patients' children of having inappropriate relationships was completely unacceptable and created a hostile environment for families who were already dealing with enough stress. The craziest part, as Jessica was cleaning out her stuff, she had the nerve to come over and tell me that I knew what I was doing and that she wasn't fooled by my innocent act.
Even after seeing our IDs and hearing from multiple people that I'm literally his daughter, she still insisted something weird was going on. My dad was so upset by the whole thing that he didn't want to go back to dialysis for his next appointment.
I had to convince him that all the other nurses there are normal and that Jessica was just a complete weirdo. The supervisor even personally apologized to him and assured us that nothing like this would happen. Story 2.
My fiancée and her friends plan to destroy me after taking my money.
Here's how I caught them. Hey Reddit, I'm 31, male. Manage a decent gastropub in the city. Never thought I'd be posting here, but I need outside perspective because I feel like I'm going insane.
So, I got engaged to Claire, 29, 6 months ago. She works in real estate, makes good money, and her friend group is all these successful types: lawyers, doctors, finance people.
Her parents were thrilled about the engagement and immediately put down 40 grand for the wedding venue and deposits.
Big fancy affair planned for next spring.
But here's where things got weird. The moment we got engaged, Claire's friends started inserting themselves into every wedding decision. I mean, everything. The flowers, the music, the menu for the reception at my own restaurant. And there were these constant little digs about my job. Like when Lauren, who's a lawyer, asked if I was sure I could keep up with Claire's lifestyle long term, managing just a bar. Or when Eric, another lawyer who played college football and never lets you forget it, suggested Claire might want to marry up instead of settling. Claire always laughed these comments off, but she never defended me either.
Started making me feel like about myself, honestly.
Then Claire started acting strange herself, working late, constantly changed all her passwords, started putting her phone face down whenever I was around. Classic cheating signs, right? But when I'd bring it up, she'd get furious and say I was being paranoid and controlling. 2 weeks ago, Megan, one of my regular customers, pulled me aside. She said her sister, Lily, works as a stylist at this upscale salon. And last week, Claire was there getting her hair done. Lily overheard Claire on a phone call the entire time, calling someone babe, and baby definitely not talking to me since I was working that day. Then Megan showed me something on Instagram. Diana, one of Claire's doctor friends, had posted a story from some fancy steakhouse downtown. You could see Claire in the background at a romantic dinner with some guy. This was last Thursday when Claire told me she was having a girls' night with her friends. That's when I remembered we share an iPad for recipes and restaurant stuff. I checked the message history. Oh my God, Reddit. Hundreds and hundreds of messages between Claire and someone named Adam over the past 3 months. Turns out Adam is her ex-boyfriend, also a lawyer. They've been planning hotel meetups, talking about how boring I am, how I smell like kitchen grease, how she's counting down the days until she can dump me. Here's just one example from last week. Claire can't wait for tonight, babe. Told the bartender I'm working late again. Adam, he actually believes you're at the office at 11 p.m. Claire, he's so pathetic. Made me dinner tonight and was so proud of himself. I could barely pretend to be grateful, Adam. Soon, you won't have to pretend anymore. My divorce lawyer says you should get at least half his assets if we play this right. Claire, can't wait till I can destroy him completely. Take his restaurant, his apartment, everything. I want him broken and homeless, so he knows what happens when trash thinks it can play in my league. But here's the really sick part. There's a group chat with all her friends, Lauren, Eric, Diana, Paige, and Brooke, where they're actively helping Claire plan this whole thing.
They're not just covering for her affair.
They're strategizing how to wait until after the wedding, then divorce me and take half my assets, my restaurant, my apartment, everything I've worked for. Some of the messages made me physically sick. Eric writing, "Let's see how much the bartender is really worth," and Lauren researching whether restaurant ownership counts as marital property in our state. Diana suggesting Claire should document any arguments we have for a future domestic violence claim. Paige calculating how much they think I'm worth and what Claire could walk away with. The worst was Brooke writing, "This is going to be so easy. He's totally clueless." And Claire responding, "I know, right?
Nathan is so desperate to please me.
He'll sign anything I put in front of him." I screenshot everything and backed it up to my personal cloud account. Honestly, I'm freaking furious. Not just hurt, angry. This isn't some mistake or moment of weakness. This is a calculated months-long plan to destroy my life while pretending to love me.
The woman I was going to marry thinks I'm trash and wants me broken and homeless. Her friends see me as easy prey because I manage a restaurant instead of wearing a suit to work.
They're literally counting my money and planning how to steal it. Part of me wants to just throw her in garbage bags and change the locks. But a bigger part of me wants to look her in the eye when I confront her with this evidence.
I want to see what happens when someone who thinks they're so much smarter than me realizes they've been caught.
Edit. Just want to clarify. I own my apartment outright, not renting. It's in a building with 247 security and cameras in all common areas. I also keep a small digital recorder in my key bowl by the door, because I sometimes record voice memos for work stuff.
Might be relevant.
Update 1. It's been 3 days since my original post, and holy crap. Reddit. I wish I could say things got better, but they got so much worse that I'm literally typing this from a hospital bed. So Friday night, I decided to confront Claire. I had printed out some of the worst messages and was ready to tear into her about this whole sick plan, then kick her out of my apartment. She came home around 9:00 p.m., acting totally normal, asking about my day, kissing me hello like nothing was wrong. I felt physically sick, but forced myself to stay calm. I sat her down and showed her the messages. The change in her was instant and terrifying. She went from loving fiancé to ice-cold stranger in seconds. No denial, no apologies, just pure rage. She started screaming at me for violating her privacy and going through her personal things like I was the one who did something wrong.
Then she grabbed her phone and started frantically texting.
I could see her typing.
He knows everything to someone.
Obviously, I wasn't going to sit there and wait while she tried to do damage control. I told her straight up, pack your and get out.
We're done. But Claire just laughed.
Actually laughed. She said, "You think you can just throw me out? You have no idea what you're dealing with." Then she kept texting, pacing around the apartment like she was planning something. I started getting a bad feeling, so I went to the key bowl by the door and quietly activated my voice recorder. Something about her confidence was setting off alarm bells. The argument escalated from there. She refused to leave. I warned her I'd call the police if she didn't go. She screamed that she also lived here, so I had no legal basis to remove her. I was halfway to just packing her stuff myself when multiple car doors slammed in the parking lot. And since I had activated the voice recorder, everything that happened next is documented. Claire's entire friend group showed up.
All 5 of them, Lauren, Eric, Diana, Paige, and Brooke. They came into my apartment like they owned the place and immediately started laying into me. Eric, who's this massive guy, kept getting in my face,
calling me a pathetic loser and asking how I dare to spy on my betterers. Lauren, the other lawyer, started this whole legal intimidation thing,
saying I could be charged with invasion of privacy and harassment. Diana, the doctor, actually said I seemed mentally unstable and maybe needed to be evaluated.
But the worst was Paige. She works in finance and kept laughing at me, saying things like, "Did you really think someone like Claire would actually want to be with someone like you? And you're just the help, Nathan."
Know your place. I tried to stay calm and just ask them all to leave my apartment. That's when Eric shoved me and said, "Make us." I told them I was calling the police if they didn't leave immediately.
Claire started crying these fake tears, saying I was threatening them and they were scared for their safety. That's when I made the decision to leave myself. I grabbed my keys and wallet and headed for the door, but they followed me in the parking lot. They surrounded me. Eric tackled me from behind, and I went down hard on the concrete. While I was on the ground, Paige pulled out a knife, like an actual kitchen knife, and stabbed me in the forearm. Not a little cut, a real stab wound. Then the craziest thing happened. While I'm bleeding on the ground, they started talking about their story. Claire was directing them on what to say, coaching them to claim I had attacked them first, and they were just defending themselves. Lauren was already talking about how they tell police I went crazy when confronted about my controlling behavior. One of my neighbors must have called 911 because I could hear sirens. I also managed to activate the emergency SOS on my Apple Watch, which automatically calls police and sends location. The cops showed up and found me bleeding with a stab wound, 2 broken ribs, and a concussion from hitting the concrete. By then, Paige had dropped the knife and were trying to execute their plan. Claire was already crying and telling the officers that I had attacked them and they were forced to defend themselves.
Eric was claiming I came at them with a weapon, and Lauren was talking about my history of controlling behavior. But the responding officers weren't buying it.
They had me bleeding on the ground with multiple injuries, while the 6 of them were standing around unharmed. Plus, the building security cameras had caught the whole thing from multiple angles. The paramedics took me to the hospital. I'm still here now. The police arrested all 6 of them, and when they searched the scene, they found the knife with my blood on them.
The detective who interviewed me said they've never seen anything like this. A group of professionals planning and executing what amounts to attempted murder. I've got a lawyer now.
Restraining orders have been filed against all of them. Claire is banned from the apartment building.
The wedding is obviously off.
I've already called the venue and explained the situation.
Her parents are going to lose their deposits, but that's not my problem anymore. 6 people I thought I knew, including the woman I was going to marry, tried to literally kill me.
I still can't believe this actually happened.
Edit, a lot of you are asking about their motives.
I found more messages after the police gave me access to the cloud backups. Apparently, the plan was to provoke me into some kind of confrontation. Film it, claim domestic violence, have me arrested. Then Claire could move in with Adam, her affair partner, and file for divorce while I was in jail. They thought this would give her claim to half my assets while I was dealing with criminal charges.
I should be released tomorrow.
My sister is driving up to stay with me for a few days.
Update 2. Been about 2 weeks since the attack.
I'm healing up okay though. My ribs are still pretty sore, and my arm is in a sling, but the legal stuff is moving fast, and it's all in my favor. So, after I got released from the hospital, my lawyer filed for emergency restraining orders against all 6 of them. The judge granted them immediately based on the hospital records, police reports, and security footage.
Now here's the thing.
After they were arrested that night, most of them made bail at their arraignment hearings. Eric and Paige got high bail amounts because of the weapons charges. But Diana, Brooke, Lauren, and Claire got lower bail since the prosecutor couldn't prove they personally used the knife. But Claire, being the genius she is, decided to violate the restraining order almost immediately. First, she showed up at my apartment building 2 days after the restraining order was granted. Security turned her away, but the cameras caught her trying to get in through the parking garage. Then 3 days later, she came to my restaurant during lunch rush, causing a huge scene. She was screaming at customers, throwing things, claiming I ruined her life, and demanding I drop the charges. My staff called the cops, and she was arrested again. The next week, she somehow got my new phone number and started calling and texting me dozens of times a day, even at literal 3 a.m. Screenshots of those messages became part of the evidence file.
Each violation is automatic jail time in our state.
So, by the third incident, the judge revoked her bail entirely.
Then, 2 days ago, I got an email at my work address from Adam, her affair partner. This guy is supposed to be a lawyer, and he sent me this threatening email from his law firm's official email address.
The subject line was cease and desist, harassment of Miss Claire Baker, and it was basically threatening to sue me for defamation and malicious prosecution if I didn't drop the criminal charges.
My lawyer nearly fell off his chair laughing when I showed him. He said it's one of the stupidest things he's ever seen an attorney do.
Threatening a crime victim to drop charges using your law firm's official email is basically admitting to witness intimidation, which is a felony. He immediately forwarded it to the prosecutor and the State Bar Association.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Last week, the prosecutor got access to all their social media accounts and cloud storage through search warrants. What they found was insane. Remember how I mentioned they had a group chat in my first post? Turns out there were multiple group chats.
One called Wedding Heist, where they were planning the whole marriage then divorce scam. One called Self-Defense Practice, where they were literally coordinating their fake story about me attacking them. But the most damaging one was called Nathan Project. This chat goes back to when Claire and I first got engaged 6 months ago.
They were planning this entire thing from the beginning. Not just the affair, not just the financial scam, but the part where they would need to neutralize me if I found out too early.
Even worse, Paige had provided a video from my own engagement party night.
You can see Claire, Lauren, Eric, and Diana huddled in a corner of the venue, with Claire pointing me out to the group while I was across the room talking to her parents. The audio is clear. Claire saying, "See how clueless he is," and Lauren responding,
"This is going to be easier than we thought." There are messages from Eric talking about his college football experience and how easy it would be to take down someone my size.
Messages from Diana about what kind of injuries would be believable for a domestic violence claim. Paige researching what kind of weapons would cause adequate damage without being obviously premeditated. The prosecutor said they've turned this into a RICO case, racketeering, because it was an organized group with a plan to commit multiple felonies over an extended period. Yesterday was their bail hearing. I was there with my lawyer to give a victim impact statement.
Lauren, Eric, and Paige were each given $500,000 bail with house arrest, ankle monitors, and their passports were confiscated. Diana and Brooke got lesser charges, but still have to wear ankle monitors and can't leave the county.
Claire is being held without bail because of the multiple restraining order violations. But the best part was when the prosecutor read some of their messages out loud in court.
The judge's face when he heard Paige's message about me being just the help and needing to know my place. When he heard Eric talking about taking down the bartender. When he heard Diana's messages about
staging injuries, the judge said in 30 years on the bench. He had never seen such calculated cruelty from defendants who should know better given their professional obligations. All of them are going to lose their professional licenses.
Lauren and Eric will be disbarred. Diana will lose her medical license. Paige will be banned from working in finance. Brooke's marketing firm has already fired her. The trial is set for early next year.
My lawyer says with all the evidence they have, the messages, the security footage,
the hospital records, the threatening email from Adam, this is going to be a slam dunk, but honestly, the best part is how it's all falling apart for them. Brooke has apparently been trying to make a deal. She wants to testify against the others in exchange for a lighter sentence. Her family is rich, but they've cut her off financially, and she can't afford the legal fees.
Adam, the affair partner, is in deep too. The state bar is investigating him for the threatening email, and he could lose his license and face criminal charges for witness intimidation. Claire's parents are devastated.
They had to mortgage their house to pay for her lawyer, and they're not getting any of the wedding money back. Edit. People keep asking about the knife. Yes, they found it. It has Paige's fingerprints and my blood. She brought it in her purse, which pretty much proves premeditation. My gastropub is doing better than ever, actually. The local news picked up the story, and people have been coming in to support me. It's weird being a local celebrity, but I'll take it. Final update. It's been 7 months since everything went down, and the trial finally wrapped up last week. Thought you all deserved to hear how this ended. The trial lasted 3 weeks, but I wasn't just sitting there waiting for the outcome.
I was actively working with the prosecutor to build the strongest case possible. Remember Brooke, who flipped and started cooperating? That was my idea.
I had my lawyer approach her attorney when I learned her family cut her off financially. I knew she was the weakest link, rich girl who'd never faced real consequences before. When she realized she was looking at serious prison time with no family money to save her, she gave us everything. And I mean everything. Not just the group chats I already knew about, but voice recordings of them practicing their fake story at Diana's gym. Videos from my engagement party showing them planning my downfall. Even recordings of phone calls where they discussed making sure I couldn't call for help. But here's the move I'm most proud of. I hired a private investigator to dig into their backgrounds. Turns out this wasn't their first rodeo. My pie found 3 other guys over the past 5 years who dated someone in this friend group and experienced similar manipulation tactics. Not this extreme,
but definitely coordinated attempts to isolate them from friends,
get access to their finances, or sabotage their careers when they tried to leave. I connected these guys with the prosecutor. Suddenly, we had a pattern of criminal behavior that turned this from an isolated incident into evidence of a racketeering conspiracy. The trial itself was beautiful to watch.
I sat in that courtroom every single day, making eye contact with each of them when their worst messages were read aloud. Claire couldn't even look at me when the prosecutor played the recording, where she said she wanted me broken and homeless.
The best moment was when Claire took the stand in her own defense. Her lawyer had coached her to play the victim.
But I'd given the prosecutor something special.
A recording from Brooke where Claire admitted Adam helped her draft a false police report claiming I was abusive,
which she planned to file after they attacked me.
During cross-examination, when asked about this report, Claire got flustered and confirmed it was true. The prosecutor just looked at the jury and said, "Ladies and gentlemen."
The defendant just confessed to conspiracy to file false charges. Her own lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. The verdicts came back in less than 4 hours.
Guilty on all counts for everyone except Diana and Brooke, who got lesser convictions. But the real satisfaction came from what I'd built outside the courtroom during those 7 months.
I'd used every media contact I made to keep their story in the news.
Local papers, radio shows, even a true crime podcast. Every interview I mentioned their names and what they done. Their Google results are permanently destroyed. The civil lawsuits I filed are about to pay off big. My lawyer estimates I'll collect around $800,000 total from all defendants and their insurance policies.
Not life-changing money, but enough to expand my business and make sure they feel real financial pain. Adam not only got disbarred, but is facing 18 months in prison for witness intimidation. His law firm fired him and publicly threw him under the bus to save their reputation.
But the most satisfying part, I used their own arrogance against them. They thought they were so much smarter than just a bartender that they documented their entire criminal conspiracy in writing. Every group chat, every voice message, every video they recorded became evidence of their premeditation. The sentences: Lauren, Eric, Paige, 36 months in state prison. No parole for 24 months, plus 5 years probation.
Diana, 18 months house arrest and 300 hours community service.
Brooke, 12 months probation thanks to testifying. Claire took a plea deal for 24 months in exchange for testifying against Adam. Adam, 18 months federal prison for witness intimidation. My restaurant is thriving beyond anything I imagined. The community support turned us into a local institution. We've expanded to 3 locations, and I just bought a house with a view of the mountains. Claire and her friends thought they found an easy mark.
Turns out that just a bartender knew how to keep receipts. Sometimes life has a weird sense of humor.
Edit. Several people have asked about the other victims my pie found. 2 of them have filed their own civil suits based on the evidence we uncovered. Claire's parents reached out through a lawyer to apologize. They had no idea what their daughter was planning and offered to help with my civil suit against her. Sometimes the apple falls very far from the tree.
For those asking, yes, I still have the voice recording from that first confrontation.
20 minutes of them planning to frame me while I was bleeding in a parking lot. It's going to be evidence in Adam's federal trial next month. Thanks again, Reddit. 7 months ago, I was just some guy who got cheated on and beaten up. Now, I'm apparently the guy who turned 6 entitled into convicted felons using their own text messages. It does feel freaking good.